This week on Flicker Effect, we've got a featured review this week, and it is, of course, Rogue One, A Star Wars Story. We will share our spoiler-free thoughts first, and then move into an in-depth spoiler-filled discussion from there. There's lots to talk about, so let's get started. Hello and welcome everybody to Flicker Effect, episode number 197. We are recording this on Sunday, December 18th, 2016. I'm David Lott. Joining me this week is Bobby Jackson.
Hello.
Yasha Wilson.
Hey.
And Michelle Curry.
Hi, everybody.
Just a reminder, this podcast is available on iTunes, Google Play Music, and the iHeartRadio app. You can find us by simply searching for Flicker Effect. That's 2 words. These episodes are also available on YouTube. Just go to youtube.com/Flicker Effect. How's it going, guys?
It's good.
Welcome.
Good.
Good. Everybody's doing all
In
right.
there.
Everybody's good. I think everybody's starting to mentally start realizing like Christmas is happening. But yeah, it's good.
It is good. We saw a new Star Wars movie.
That happened this weekend.
We did.
Did anybody go see that movie this weekend? I don't know.
I think a few
It
people,
made a little
I'm
bit of
not sure.
money.
It did some numbers. It did do some numbers, didn't it?
A few.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
But yeah, in the meantime, we have got a film to review.
State your name for the record.
Jyn Erso.
Forgery of imperial documents, possession of stolen property, aggravated assault, resisting arrest.
On your own from the age of 15. Reckless, aggressive, and undisciplined.
This is a rebellion, isn't it? I rebel.
We have a mission for you. A major weapons test is imminent. We need to know what it is and how to destroy it.
Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
What will you do when they catch you? What will you do if they break you? If you continue to fight? What will you become?
All right, the first Star Wars spin-off film is finally here. This week we will be reviewing Rogue One, A Star Wars Story. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we'll start off by sharing our spoiler-free thoughts as always. We will then move into a in-depth spoiler-filled discussion for the film, so anyone who listening who doesn't want spoilers yet, don't worry, we'll give you plenty of warning before we start to ruin everything. As always, we don't randomly pick who goes first around here. We always consult a higher authority, even if Michelle rolls her eyes at me about this. It's time for the Bowl of Destiny.
The Bowl of Destiny.
Thanks, Yasha. That was very nice.
Hey, I'm here for you, buddy. I tried to put a little dramatic pause in there for you, too. So.
Yeah, that was nice.
That
I
was
heard
nice.
that.
Kind of was like, wait.
I should have recorded
bowl
that.
of
Oh, wait,
what?
I did.
What's happening?
Right? You've got that. Just isolated.
Yeah.
The Bowl of Destiny. Too much? I felt like that was too much. I felt like that was...
It was a little long. I like the
delayed.
first one.
Yeah, I like the first
I
one.
said it was a
I'll
little
keep the
delayed,
first
so
one.
yeah, all right. That was my bad. I went too far.
All right. I'm keeping the first one.
Got a little cocky. It's okay. It happens to the best of us.
A little
All
ahead
right.
of myself.
I've got a name first, and it is... it's Michelle.
Yay!
Here it is.
This
You
is
see it right here.
sweet. Oh, yeah.
Yay, Michelle.
It took a couple episodes off. It didn't pick you first, like the last
It's
three
like 2 times, I think. Yeah.
And you had said something about that before we recorded, and I said, well, there you go. You just,
I'm screwed now.
yeah,
Oh,
screwed now.
God. Okay.
all right.
Well,
We saw Rogue One last night,
yes.
We have not talked about it. I don't know what you thought of the movie, so share with us,
I know.
Michelle.
I'm almost afraid to even converse about this with you, I'll be honest.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
This is going to be awesome.
So we actually, I mean, and I gotta say, before I even get into the review, we saw it in the Dolby Digital Theater, and it was, God, you know, that is the way movie experience should be. That's the way you should be experiencing film, at least as far as like blockbusters go, and just, oh God, it's just so good. It's just the visual, the clarity, the depth of color, the depth of field, the music, the sound. It just, you can't capture an experience like that. As I mean, I haven't to this day until we started going to, and I'm like, this is for all the big blockbusters. I think I'm going to see them all in this way. I don't work for Dolby, by the way. I'm just saying, like,
We are not sponsored by Dolby.
I'm not sponsored by Dolby. I'm not
We are
getting any
unfortunately
money.
not making any money from them. We would be happy to.
It'd be great.
We'll pimp Dolby all
Let me
day
tell
long.
you, I will sing their praises. But yeah, that theater experience is by far and away the best theater experiences I've ever had. So yeah, that was probably the best way to see this film. Anyways, sorry, total riff. Rogue One, huh?
To start off, I want to say, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like in general you've been kind of ho-hum about the movie leading up to it, right? Like every time we've talked about the trailers.
Yeah. I mean, I would say like it's like I'm excited, but I'm not like losing my mind excited. Like you guys have all been just crazy happy for this, and I'm like I'm excited, but I'm not like, I don't know. I think I'm much more subdued about it. I would say I'm more subdued than you guys have been about this film.
Okay.
About that. But
Just
yeah.
throwing that out there before you get to your...
I don't know if I would say ho hum. That makes me sound like such a
No,
douche.
ho-hum sounds a bit drastic.
A little bit,
Yeah.
but it's definitely, I've been more mellow with it also.
Right.
Anywho, so Rogue One. Overall, I liked it. I liked it a lot, actually. I thought it was a lot of fun, and it's definitely, God, I will say for a Star Wars film, it's definitely some of the best action sequences I've ever seen in a Star Wars film, and really in a lot of other films, I'll say. But I do take some issues with some things. You know, there's I don't know, it's hard to explain. Like, like while I liked certain characters, I feel like certain characters had more storyline and in depth to their person than others, and there's some that, and the ones that weren't, I was kind of like, well, I'd like to know just a smidge more, like what's making this person that way, like why does that person tick that way, and you just don't get that answer. And yeah, at the same time, it's kind of like, okay, it's fine, you don't get that answer, whatever. But the other thing that I kind of am mixed on is the character of K2SO. That's right. Mm-hmm. The one that Alan Tudyk voices.
Yeah.
He has some of the best lines of the entire film. And at the same time, it kind of frustrates me that he's the one that has some of the best lines of the entire film. I'm like, really? Like, they didn't spread that around a little bit? But overall, the music, the visuals, the action sequences, I think the story plays really well. It's got good pacing to it. Like, I'm happy with it. It's good. Is it great and spectacular? I don't think it is, but I still really thoroughly enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun with it, and yeah, that's I guess that's the best way I could say. I think Felicity Jones is really good in it. I will say I was happy with Felicity Jones. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe just too many nods to certain things, and some things I enjoyed that they would nod to, and other things just kind of like, okay, it just felt forced sometimes to the other stories. I don't know. I will definitely go way more into this in spoilers, but for right now, yeah, that's what I got.
Cool. All right.
Sorry, I wish I could be more articulate in this.
No, that's
because I think the overwhelming, like,
sure you'll dig deeper in spoilers.
Yeah, I think overall everybody's been really, the welcoming for this film has been very happy, and I mean it's one of those things like I liked it. I think it's enjoyable, and you know, to my knowledge, it's very canon, and I like that because it kind of pulls everything together. But it just kind of, doesn't do a lot more for me than that.
Cool.
So yeah, that's where I'm at.
Alrighty then. Back to the bowl I go. Bobby.
I knew it.
Yeah,
I knew it.
I had a
I've been
feeling.
pulling up in that second position.
You
a lot.
have.
I was gonna say it's usually me, then you, then Yash, and then David. It's weird how it goes in that order.
Right.
It's impressive.
It is.
All right, Bobby. You've seen the movie twice.
I have.
You
And I
also,
should-
like me, read the Star Wars Catalyst novel, which is like a Rogue One kind of prequel. So you had that knowledge going into it. What'd you
Yep.
think?
So, and yeah, I did see it twice. The first time was in a regular theater, and the second time was in a Dolby Cinema theater. And like Michelle mentioned, it really is such a great experience seeing a movie in that theater. It's completely elevates the experience in and of itself, just because of the way the seats are, the way that the visual look on the screen is for the picture quality. There's sound systems all over that place, even in your chair. So you're getting that extra sensory little push every time that there's something on the screen that warrants it. It doesn't beat you over the head with it, but it's just enough, and it's there when you really kind of need it to be there. And so it's just an overall experience I can't recommend enough. But on to the actual film. So, as you said, I did read the novelization, or at least listen to the audiobook of Catalyst. So that informed some of my opinion going into the film in terms of some of these characters, getting to know them beforehand. With that being said, I feel like actually I was able to somewhat divorce that material from what I actually watched on the screen. And what I actually ended up seeing and coming out of that theater with was that I enjoyed the hell out of this movie, but I didn't quite get to the level of loving this movie. And some of that has to do with characterization that was in the film. But beyond that, it's just there's some other things to nitpick at, and we'll get to that in spoilers. But beyond that, just there was so much other good things about this movie, that the fact that you get a self-contained story, and that there's this idea of that this thing that we've heard so much about from watching A New Hope, that you want to see what this whole thing, or how this whole thing kind of went down. And now you have this story, and there's some cool character moments within this. And there's also this build up that happens towards the third act of the movie. That's just, for my money, one of the best hours that I've seen on film in a long time. I mean, it's just from that point on to the end of the movie is so solid. And I would say if you can combine some of those things that I saw in that third act into the first and second act, that movie would have really just propelled it to be in something really special. And that being aside, I still really enjoyed this movie so much, and cannot wait to see it at least one more time and be able to pull some more things out of it that I didn't see or notice the first two times. And the other aspect of it that I thought worked really well for me, and I'm curious to hear what you say, David, but the score, knowing that Michael Giacchino only had 4 weeks or whatever it was, something insane to work on this, thought he did a good job. Now, am I going to be singing the songs out of this and humming them in the months and years to come? Maybe not, but I think that what it did was it served the purpose of the movie well, and it's distinguished itself from being another Star Wars movie and having its own identity while still having some familiar elements to it. And so I thought that was really well in terms of the time he had to be able to put something together. The other thing that I actually really enjoyed out of this was a couple of the relationships that you see within the film. And you get a real sense of some of these characters, that there's a kinetic bond there that you kind of just feel, and it comes off the screen pretty well. And you want to see more of that because of the fact that it works so well. Other than that, there's just just so down to business, and it's what you kind of would expect from a Star Wars war film. It's kind of no nonsense in a way, other than, as Michelle mentioned, you have K2SO that does provide the comic relief, in which I didn't actually mind in the sense of it being isolated to him, just because I think sometimes the mistakes some movies try to make is, or sometimes the mistakes some movies make is that when they do try and spread it around, it's like, dude, not everyone is funny. Not everyone should be funny. Some people should be serious. Some people are the comedic element, and that's their thing because that's kind of how they are. And because they explain that within the character, you get a sense of why he is the way he is, and why other people are sort of like, look, this is kind of like, I don't have time for that kind of nonsense, so to speak, in my life. So they're kind of a different sort of way. But I thought it all worked really well. And just seeing the different planets and everything feeling and looking so well worn and lived in, and just the effects, the visuals, it seemed like they get better and better every time. I don't know how they're able to continually top themselves and make things look so good. One of my favorite parts in the sense of settings was when they're on Jeddah and the sort of marketplace that they're at. It just looks so stunning from a visual standpoint of getting to see other types of creatures and aliens and the look, like how you would sort of equate it to a Mos Eisley, and just the different type of atmosphere and things that are going on. It really felt organic and really fit in with the story, and that's like what I want to see from this. And the element of the last act, I guess, where you do get a giant space battle, and I'm still trying to parse it through in my head, but so far I'm still thinking this is probably the best space battle I've seen in any Star Wars movie to this date. So that was really, really well done. And it just gave me such a great feeling seeing that, and just so many other elements that I'm sure we'll get into. And I don't want to take any more time from anyone else. So I really, really enjoyed it a lot, and I'm looking forward to seeing it again.
Cool. All right, Yasha. Let's see. You're next.
Really?
Yep, Yasha. I did pick his name.
Gosh. I'm telling you, it's like, while we have the Bowl of Destiny, there seems to be no like random destiny happening here.
I know. That's why I'm glad Michelle's watching me do this.
Like,
no one would believe me. I know.
Absolutely amazing to me how I see these come out every week, and I'm always like, really? How the fuck does this happen?
The bowl once, but the bowl once.
Yes.
Maybe it is destiny. That's our order. I don't know. It's just telling us this is how it goes.
So, Yasha, you saw the film just once, I take it?
I did. I just saw it once. I think I was there with Michelle for a while there. I was pretty much, I wasn't super excited about this movie. When I saw the first trailer, I wasn't really amped. Like, it didn't really do much for me. I'm just like, okay, well, we know where the story's going to go. Like, it's not like this is going to be really that groundbreaking. But that being said, by the time I was getting ready to watch the movie, I was really looking forward to it, and I was ready to watch it and see what they had in store for us. I enjoyed it. After listening to everybody's reviews, I can see their points, and actually I kind of resonated a lot with what everybody said. I feel like there is a little bit of lacking when it came to some of the character development and some of the stories and what drives some of these characters and which direction they were going. The acting, I thought, was really well done. I really want to get into spoilers because there's a lot of stuff that I would really enjoy talking about. The special effects, I saw it in a Dolby theater, and they were surreal. They were so impressive. I was so just constantly impressed by the special effects for this movie. It was just, it's amazing what they can do and what they do nowadays when it comes to film. And I'm not even talking about the space fight battle scenes and whatnot. I mean, just the special effects alone for some of the characters and everything. I just sat there and jaw dropping, and I was just like, wow, like that's amazing. And I really enjoyed it. Overall, I did really enjoy the movie. It did live up to the hype that I was starting to really get and hear from people. Pardon me. But it was good. I really did enjoy. I enjoyed it. The score was decent. I felt that I was listening to an interview with Alan Tudyk over on Friday, and you're right. I mean, with all the humor that they had for K2SO and the movie, apparently he said that they did a lot of improvisation for the film, which I thought is surprising because it didn't seem like they would really do something like that for a Star Wars film. But they were not only did they do it, but they were really encouraged to do as much improvisation as they thought that they could muster up. So I'm kind of curious as to how many funny parts that he did, because he was very much the comic relief for the movie. How much he really played into that, how much of that was him and how much of that was actually scripted. Because it played really well. Almost every time that he opened his mouth, it played very, very well. And he just kind of blurted things out. And the way that he described the character with K2SO is that he had kind of the personality of a child that, children don't have filters. They just kind of say what comes to their mind. And that's pretty much how he played K2SO. But that being said, I really did just enjoy the movie. I thought it was fun. I loved where it went towards the end of the movie. It just got me more and more excited as the further it got into the end of the film. And I was a fan. I would like to see it maybe one, maybe even two more times in the theater, because I think it holds up, and I think you can do that, and you'll take more from it the more that you watch it. And it makes me want to go back and watch some of the other movies as well. So, episode 4, I should say. So it was entertaining. I enjoyed it.
Very cool. I guess that leaves me. I get to be last. So yeah, I saw the film just once. I really wanted to see it a second time before we did this review, because part of me feels like I could watch it again and probably give slightly different thoughts on a second viewing. And I really wanted to squeeze another viewing in today. I just couldn't make it happen. So I've only seen it once, just like it sounds like everybody here. I saw it in the Dolby Cinema, which I said this after Fantastic Beasts, which I saw in Dolby Cinema, that it's probably the best theater experience I've ever had, outside of maybe like 70 millimeter IMAX, which is almost impossible to even enjoy at this point. But yeah, it's amazing. And I mean, you guys have already said enough about it. I won't go on anymore. I pretty much have the same thoughts of all of you guys on that subject. So when it comes to my review, you're kind of probably going to get two kind of reviews out of me when it comes to this show. There's going to be my spoiler-free thoughts, which is probably going to sound more like a traditional kind of film criticism. And then you're going to get my spoiler-filled thoughts, which is just basically going to be Star Wars fanboy thoughts on Rogue One. But as for my spoiler-free thoughts, the film is definitely, it's an interesting experiment for Disney Lucasfilm. I mean, they're attempting to make a spin-off film for the first time for Star Wars. And it's interesting to see, their attempt to not make it too confusing for general fans, which, I mean, I've already talked to a couple of friends this week who were like, hey, David, they know, because, they know I'm a big Star Wars fan and I'm a big film nerd. And, I had a couple of friends reach out to me this week that were like, so this Star Wars movie that's coming out, what's the deal with this? Like, where does this fit in? What's going on? Why should I care about this? And I had to explain, well, it's not part of this. It's not about the Skywalkers, blah, blah, blah. And after, some talking a little bit, they'd be like, okay, I get what you're saying. But obviously, they were confused. And I get the impression there's probably a lot of people like that. It's interesting to see, Disney Lucasfilm trying to get people to buy into a Star Wars film that doesn't have the typical mythology of the universe, doesn't have the force and the light and the dark side, that it's not front and center in this film like it is in a lot of the other movies. And I think in the end we get a film that, when compared to the other Star Wars films, at times does feel a bit bland. But with that said, I thoroughly enjoyed it, but I'm also coming into this as a big Star Wars fan. So, I mean, when we talk spoilers, I'll obviously dig a lot deeper into that. But, I mean, I can imagine there's probably a lot of people walking out of this, kind of feeling like, it was good, but, it's just not the same. And but for someone like me who's a huge fan in the first place, like I mean, I had a great time. And after reading Star Wars Catalyst, you know, having that knowledge in my head, I was even more curious to see how this was going to play out, because I mean, that book pretty much like led right into this movie. And yeah, I mean, in the end, I thoroughly enjoyed it. There's definitely parts of the film I very, very much enjoyed. And, you know, sure, I've got some criticisms, but, you know, I guess in the end, I would say I didn't quite enjoy it as much as I think I hoped I would, but I want to be clear that I thought it was a very good movie. So that's my thoughts on Rogue One.
Yeah, I feel like spoilers are going to be really interesting.
Yeah.
I feel like I've held back a lot. I think it sounds like you have. I know Bobby has. Goodness, he probably has a list sitting in front of him. But yeah, it'll be interesting, I think, all around everybody to get into the spoiler section of this.
And I didn't even I almost forgot. I didn't say anything about the score. You talked about it, Bobby, and Michael Giacchino scored this in like a month. And because it was originally going to be, I think, Alexandra Desplat, I think, was going to score this, which I was really looking forward to. And don't get me wrong, nothing against Giacchino. Giacchino's great, but I was really looking forward to that. I was bummed when I heard he had to step away from it. And I was worried. I'm like, you know, Giacchino's great, but scoring this in a month, that has me a little concerned. Like, what are we going to end up with? And it's a really great score. I mean, I will say it's somewhat like my thoughts on the score to Force Awakens, which was scored by John Williams, where it serves the film well, but it can also be a bit forgettable when you compare it to previous Star Wars scores, which had, you know, a lot of individual themes to certain scenes that are just memorable on their own. Like, I could sit there and listen to a Star Wars album and love each of these tracks, and they sound very different. And this one's not so much like that. There's times too where I'll admit, like, there was one or two scenes that popped up where I felt like the score was attempting to give the film a certain Star Wars feeling that the film wasn't really trying to go for. Like, I felt like Giacchino, either because he was directed that way to do that or on his own, was making it feel a little more, I don't know, just like happy Star Wars when it wasn't necessarily like warranted. And
I feel like I know what you're talking about. Like, there was a scene like right when the movie started, like it felt like they were going to do the scroll and it just didn't.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like,
the
blaring
title, the one title card moment, which is a very brief part of the score. That in particular, I was kind of like, I don't really know if I cared for that little bit of kind of fanfare. And I think the other point was, when you see I think it was the first shot of the Yavin. I don't remember, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, but like, I was actually just listening to the score on Spotify. It's available on Spotify to stream, and I was just listening to it before we started. And I mean, it's a great score. I was thoroughly enjoying listening to it. And again, it served the film well, but it's not like a typical John Williams score where you get all these really great different themes that just stand out on their own. It's definitely not like that. So, anyway,
I will say though that even with John Williams, there's levels of greatness and levels of just decent, but not, because if you told me or asked me to hum or give you anything from Star Wars Episode 2 and 3, I don't think I could. And I've seen those movies enough times, but I just really can't. Aside from Duel of the Fates from Episode 1, I really can't think of too much score from the other movies.
I will say, like, I mean, right off the top of my head, like the love theme from Episode 2 is actually quite good.
I can't even think of how that goes.
I mean, I feel like if you heard it, you would recognize it.
Yeah, no, it's definitely standoutish. It's definitely, I mean, of all the newer ones, I mean, that's definitely, that score stands out. That specific one, part of that, yeah, it's yeah.
But you're
like, oh
right.
yeah, no, I hear that.
I mean, sure,
yeah.
every composer's got, films that are great works and some that are not so great. Oh, I mean, absolutely.
Yeah, but then again, too, it's like that's probably one of the areas and scenes I usually fast forward at this point when I'm watching any of the
You don't love that montage?
Oh, it's my favorite favorite to skip past.
The only point to watch it is to listen to the score, really. It's the
Yeah, exactly.
Well, the Senate scenes. Never mind.
What was that, Michelle?
Nothing.
What?
Okay.
But yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm forgetting a couple things, of course, and hopefully I'll remember in spoilers. But I mean, yeah, I really enjoyed the movie. I had a great time, especially at the end of the film. Is all I'll say. You know, I definitely had a moment toward the end where, I mean, Michelle, you've said it before. A lot of times, I guess I don't show emotion on the outside when I'm sitting in a movie theater. But trust me, there was a moment in that movie on the inside, I was flipping the fuck out. Trust me.
Oh.
But
Oh,
I'm
now
right there
I'm
with you, man.
now I'm
Totally
excited.
right there with you.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I don't think it's hard to figure out what the hell I'm talking about. But
We should go in opposite order for spoilers.
no.
Oh no, I want to hear this.
We can't defy the bowl.
No, we should go backwards. Come on, it'll be
Yeah,
fun.
Michelle just is trying to get out of
Yeah.
her due diligence in terms of.
Well, now
giving
I'm
her
like,
thoughts.
I want to hear this. There's a level of excitement happening on the other side of the table here.
Ready to hear your disdain.
Then the looks you're getting right now.
Oh, I figured. I just hear her trying to weave and bob her way out of going first in spoilers. I'm just trying to keep the train on the tracks.
Sadly, that's actually not what I'm doing. But never mind.
No, we know you're not. That's what
Wow.
you're not what you're doing. Wow. We know he's joking. But yeah, I guess we'll go ahead and get into spoilers. So, for anyone listening to this episode, if you haven't seen Rogue One yet, I would strongly encourage you to pause this at this point. Go watch the movie. Come back, finish this episode, because from here on out, we're going to get really in depth with Rogue One, a Star Wars story. We're going to talk about all the details where you're going to ruin the movie. So with that, hey, Michelle. Your thoughts again on the movie. Your spoiler-filled thoughts on Rogue One.
Okay. I'm trying to decide if I want to start negative or intermix it all, or where I want to go here. Maybe I'll be positive. I'll do that. I'll get crazy with it. Honestly, I god dang, the special effects for this film are, I would say 90% just so on point and mind blowing. I can't even handle it. My little heart just gets giddy and skips a beat. And for me, really, the film, the whole last third of the film was the best part of the entire film. Just the battle scene on the beach and up in the air, up in the space, it was just absolutely spectacular on so many levels. I can't even describe to you. I was just giddy in my seat. I'm glad that it was kind of saved to last, because I was kind of winding down, and then also I was like, finally there's some action sequence. And it wasn't oh, finally there's some action sequence. There's a shitload of action sequence, and it was great, and I loved it. And I love seeing the beat stormtroopers and the AT-AT. It was just all so good. So good.
That's right, it's an AT-AT.
It was orchestrated well. We've had this discussion. We've had that discussion ad nauseum. But and the Star Destroyer and just everything, and what was it, the Hammerhead ship? What they call it, the Cadillac Hammerhead? Was that what it was? That was freaking amazing. I was losing my shit. I was like, this is awesome. And yeah, I mean, honestly, the CGI was great, and yeah. For the most part. Where for me the CGI fails was reviving two very specific characters in order to give to nods to New Hope. And yeah, for me that was rough. I think the worst of the two was Leia, honestly. It bothered me a lot. The way they were shooting the entire last sequence. I mean, I'm jumping here. I realize I'm jumping all the way in this film. You're watching it, and they're just giving you basically, the back of her wardrobe and then the bottom of her wardrobe. And I'm like, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. And then sure as shit, they do this CGI'd ass shot of her face. And she's talking, and it's like looking at a Muppet talk with CGI on top of it. And I wanted to throw things at the film. I can't handle it. It was just so overly bland to me. I was just like, are you it was childlike looking, and I absolutely hate it. I couldn't handle it. I was like, and now they failed. Oh God, it killed me. And the thing is I'm online, and some people love it. They think it's spectacular, and I'm like, were we in the same film?
I mean, I'll be honest. I'm having that reaction with you right now because I thought it looked great. Like, I don't understand how you thought it looked so bad.
I thought it looked horrific.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Like, I'm like, oh, okay. I don't know. We're gonna have a discussion about that when I talk.
See, like the way her mouth looked, the glossed over look of her skin, it was so overly CGI'd for me. I couldn't even.
And I mean, I'll say that too. It's like,
oh God,
I just watched A New Hope the day before, and had a very fresh like image in my mind of what she looks like in that movie. And I don't know. I mean, to me, it looked dead fucking on. So that's all I'll say.
Yeah, it looked like a glossed over doll to me.
I mean, she kind of has that look about her though in that movie.
Yeah, I remember from A New Hope, she was pretty much like.
She looked
shiny.
like she was 19. That's what she looked
Very
like.
shiny.
Whereas
Dude, she was about 19 when she did the movie. She was like 20 or something like that.
I
wasn't
know she was exactly 19 when she did that film. What I'm saying is she looked like she was her age she was, and I don't feel like she looked like a glossed over doll in the film because it was really her. It's just I'm watching this and it just looked too CGI for me. Yeah. So yeah. And then oh God, I can't even think of his name now.
Peter Cushing.
Yes. Yeah. I wasn't a major fan of it either, honestly. It really didn't do much for me. I think it was awkward. I felt to me it was very obvious, like, we're going to have an actual human being, and then we're going to chop his head off, and we're going to put the CGI head on top of his shoulders. And that's what it was like watching it. And it just, I don't know. It did nothing for me. And it was, I think they actually made him look older than he looked for New Hope. And I felt like, if anything, they should have shaved off a year or two. I was like, that just makes no sense. So, yeah, that was probably my biggest, like, what the fuck thing. And I realize I'm in the huge minority on this. But yeah, for me, that was just a huge mispoint. And it really turned me away from the whole thing. But yeah, like we've said, all of us have said, character development seems to be the most resounding thing I'm hearing. Am I incorrect on this?
As a negative?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like there was just, I don't know, there was lacking a lot of character development and like reasons why people were doing the things that they were doing. And mainly with Cassian, I feel like you really just don't understand him per se. Like, he has this huge chip on his shoulder. God only knows why. And at the same time, like, his loyalty to the rebellion, God love it, is so ridiculously strong. And so you're just like, what is the catalyst for the strength of your allegiance to this rebellion? Like, it's you. I mean, he's willing to do, they say jump, and he's like, how high, dude? Like, he's all over it to certain points, I will say, because there's an exception. But yeah, for me, that was just kind of weird. And yeah, like, I really enjoyed K2SO a lot. At the same time, like, they made him almost too unrobotic in certain times, I felt. And he had some of the best freaking lines, you know, and it was entertaining and it was great. And it was just like, wow, Alan Tudyk is really bringing this to life, and I'm really enjoying that. But at the times, it was almost too lively, I guess. I don't know. I think from my head, and I realized that he was like redone, you know, but it just, I don't know, it was kind of weird. I liked it, but I didn't like it. It was, I don't know, bizarre. But overall, I think everybody, I really enjoyed them. I'm a little, Forrest Whitaker was a bit over the top for me, especially when he was dying. It was a little too much. But yeah, I don't know. Riz Ahmed, though, I actually thought was pretty good. And it was surprising. But again, I will say, I feel like his, like, why he's doing what he's doing was kind of lost in the whole scheme of things. So yeah, I feel like character development was a little bit lacking in this one. But overall, I'm really happy with the film. I like the way it ended. And I know some people are actually taking fault with it, like saying just everybody from Rogue One dies. And I'm like, oh, yeah. That happens. Shit happens. Like, people die. It's a rebellion. Like, not everybody's going to live a happily ever after. Right. And as, perverse as that sounds, I like that. I like that story is concluded. That is done. Those storylines they're over. And they died with great cause and great sacrifice. So yeah, but yeah, there was, and just all the nods to everything. Like, part of me like really enjoyed it. It was like, oh yeah, that's funny. Oh hey, that's that. And like running into those two guys that eventually are in Mos Eisley. Like, that's really cool. And that was really early in the film too. But like, some of the stuff is really great, and some of the stuff is like, okay, they just keep forcing it to us. Like, okay, we get it. Okay, we get it. Okay, like, I get it. You're trying to make all the connections and keep it all. But yeah, so yeah, I'm saying all this negative stuff. I still really enjoyed it. Like, I had a lot of fun. Like, it was a fun experience to see how it all goes down. Yeah, I'm very happy with the film.
Cool.
So, yeah.
Bobby, your spoiler thoughts on Rogue One?
Yeah, it's interesting because as I go into this spoiler review, I'll preface it by saying that, once again, I really enjoyed this movie a lot. And it's just so fantastic to see this story. And as David mentioned, this experiment, and feeling that it came across very successful gives me hope for the Han Solo spinoff. I mean, granted, it's still not one that I felt was necessary, but in the end, I do feel like, now that I feel like they've stuck the landing with this Rogue One, that I feel like they can go into Han Solo with their heads held high, saying we're on to something here, and let's proceed accordingly. And hopefully, above everything else, I really hope, if they're going to continue down this road, that they have to give us Obi-Wan Solo with Ewan McGregor. And I know, David, you don't really care to see any of these with characters that we exist, but I feel like if there was ever a character to explore some quote-unquote lost years with, while Ewan McGregor is still able to do it, it's got to be Obi-Wan. I mean, I definitely want to see that over a Boba Fett film, over a Yoda film, anything. It's just, I really want to see some of the things going on with Obi-Wan. But with this one, it's I can only say a certain amount of things positive for it, in the sense that the way it made me feel overall, watching it, looking at it, absorbing it, living with it, it just was a very, very positive experience. Specific isolated things are not as necessarily what gave me the pleasure and joy. It was just this overall experience. I did enjoy the relationship, as I mentioned earlier, between some of the characters and their camaraderie and their bond, like the one that you have with Chirrut, played by Donnie Yen, and then Baz, his friend, the heavy gunner guy, I forget his name, but or his real name. And they had that relationship together as friends, bonded together. And then, of course, with K2SO and Cassian, they had their relationship, and very much back and forth, and how they depended upon each other, reminiscent of a Han and Chewie kind of dynamic in a sense. And so those relationships worked really well. And obviously, the money shot, I mean, that we're all ready to talk about, is obviously with Darth Vader at the end. When he comes into the scene, and I would say once he boards the rebel ship, that to me is like the bread and butter, the thing that you want to see, because it's so brutal. I mean, he is just going through, and I'll say this is probably my most favorite use of what the score was doing at this point, because it felt urgent. And as you see Vader cutting down people and just plowing through rebels like it's nobody's business, it's so beautiful in its destruction and mayhem. I felt more for those rebel soldiers as they were doing this relay with the plans to the Death Star in that moment than I think I felt for any other non-named character
Right.
in all the other Star Wars films, because they were on a mission to get those plans out of reach of the Empire, and out of Darth Vader's hands and reach. They were passing that thing on till they couldn't anymore. And it was just, you felt it, and it was just so powerful, and I could watch that over and over again. And then, so getting into my negatives, I have a lot, but oddly enough, it still didn't impact overall how I felt about and came out of the movie. I guess I'll start with where Michelle kind of started, in a sense, which is with the CGI. Now, actually, I'm going to agree with her. I think that Leia, in the end, it was a little too much for me in terms of how she looked. Did she look similar to how she did in A New Hope? Yes. But I also don't recall. I don't think I've ever remember seeing Princess Leia in A New Hope smile. So it was jarring just seeing her smile and saying, hope, which in one respect, it kind of bugged me how much the use of the word hope was in it. At some points. It was like, it was almost overused in a sense, but then in another sense, it was kind of cool because it does set up what comes next, which is Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. And it kind of pushes that message. I just thought it was just maybe a little heavy-handed in certain sense. But
and I don't want to interrupt you real quick, but like,
go
I just
ahead.
felt that like just seeing Leia's face, it just wasn't really necessary. Like, I just don't feel like that did anything really to the. It was almost like they were like, let's just show off some CGI and have Leia's face. Like, it just, like, they could have left it very mysterious and not even done that at all. Like, they were doing so well, literally up to that second. You're like, oh, I see the back of her. Oh, I see the bottom. Like, it just didn't. I felt like it just didn't add anything to that scene.
Now,
personally.
see, I will say, for me, I thought for sure it was needed. I thought you can't really have this leading up to where it goes without seeing her. And I didn't mind seeing her. I just felt like maybe the shot held on to her a little too long, like literally like a second too long or so, in terms of me buying into the look of her. It was right there, dead on, and then it held and held, and I was like, oh, that looks a little weird, and then it cuts, So it was really literally like maybe a second too long for me. But aside from that, I'll go with the other end of that and say Tarkin, General Tarkin at this point. Very jarring seeing the CGI of him, and I understand why you need him in there. He definitely should be in the movie, and I don't really know any other way to get around it other than what they did. And sometimes I would go in and out of believing it and then not believing it, and so it was just kind of it was teetering. It was like, it was cool, then it was like, oh, that's weird. Cool, oh, that's weird. And so I don't really know any way out of it other than you just kind of have to get used to it. And upon multiple viewings, maybe that feeling and those thoughts kind of subside a little bit. You just get used to it. But it did have me honestly thinking that I could watch a whole movie of CGI characters all together, as in the sense of like how they had those Final Fantasy movies where they had that CGI look to them. But I could see that as a complete series, whether it was on TV, Netflix, movies, whatever, as just all CGI, because then it would all be one thing and all blend together well. But as far as the other aspects of him, I thought he sounded good, and he did look as good as I guess you could make him look, but it just did feel a little bit jarring in seeing him at times. And I almost thought like you couldn't have quite done it this way, but there was times when you just see him from the back as he's staring out the window, and it's like, that looks good. That looks pretty good. Maybe if they had a little side profile and hear him talking, that could have helped. Maybe if they also had him from a long shot as opposed to the close-ups that might have helped. But that's, again, just nitpicking at the CGI, which, again, it looks really, really good. But when you place it in the aspects of real actors, I could see the difference. And to their credit, I will say that I was talking to some friends yesterday, and one of them didn't even know that it was a CG character. So that means that they obviously did really well for some people, and not knowing that that character was even not real at all. But some of the other things, again, I'll agree with Michelle in that the voice of Saw Gerrera, it was just it was a little much in terms of how he would use his voice in that sort of grating, scratchy, high pitch kind of tenor, and it just was not as good as I had hoped it would be. But luckily, his appearance in the film is condensed in such a way that it's not throughout the film, and that you kind of get like to the point where you just want to see this guy die because you don't want to hear him talk anymore. So it wasn't quite that bad, but it was still kind of like it was an odd choice, I guess, for me in terms of why they made his voice in such that way. There's a bit of a part in it that it feels so worn and tired that I did like, but then it was just at the same time it just kind of would grow a little old for me. One of the other parts that I thought was, I don't know, like again with what we were talking about as far as the characters and their overall resonance with me as who they were, is I liked all the characters, but I felt as though they needed one or two more scenes or a little bit more about them in order for me to have felt the impact of their deaths a little bit more. Like, I was obviously sad to see them go, but it didn't hit me as hard as I thought it would. And I think that's just a little bit of not getting to know them just slightly deeper, or an added scene or something here or there to make me care about them a little bit more. I felt like in an overall sense, if Force Awakens for me had new characters that stuck to me a little bit more and made me care about them kind of out of the gate, the Rogue One made me care about the story more than it did when I watched The Force Awakens. So for me, Force Awakens had a stronger characterization but lesser story, whereas Rogue One had a stronger story with lesser characterization. And I would, not to compare the two in the same sense, but I guess if I had to lean one way, I would maybe slightly choose connecting to characters over story, slightly, at least in this sense, because if we're going to go further with some of these characters, I want to care about them, obviously. And in this one, it's self-contained, so I guess you don't have to necessarily care about them all beyond this movie, but it's still, since it is self-contained, there's been plenty of self-contained movies out there that I have a feeling for all the different characters and what happens to them and feel invested in it. So I just thought, again, as everyone has said, the characterization could have been a little bit stronger in terms of making me care about what they were going to happen and eventually would happen. And I didn't mind the fact that everybody died, because it is a part of this story and you don't see these characters anymore. So you just kind of assume, kind of going into it, that they probably died and that there was no sort of continuation for them at any given point. I think the other thing that really bothered me, and I would actually say this thing probably bothered me more than anything else, is towards the end when they're in the middle of the Battle of Scarif, when they're on the planet, and you have Krennic there, and you see him and Jen are on the platform, and then Cassian comes out and shoots Krennic and kind of knocks him out. I felt as though that kind of robbed Jen of her moment, in terms of this guy who had essentially tore her family apart and really didn't have any good reason other than his own personal motivations for doing so. Is just that it seemed like that would have been her moment to have, and they took the agency from the character, and by having Cassian come in and quote unquote sort of save the day for her. So I really felt that was poorly done, because the whole time built up to that, they worked so hard trying to show that Jen is a very capable woman and able to be in this rebellion or be able to sustain herself and do what she needs to do in order to carry things out. And so having that not in there, it just felt it. I just saw it instantly. And I was like, oh, well, that kind of sucks. And she didn't get to do her thing.
I'll agree 100% with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And along those lines, the other thing that I feel like I got kind of robbed out of was, I don't know what they cut out of the movie in terms of what they reshot and what they decided not to go with. But even if you listen to that trailer, like we did at the top of the show, you can tell there's so much in that, even just within the dialogue, that's not in the actual movie. And so I feel like there's that old adage when it comes to movies to show, not tell. And there's so much that seems to be missing from the time that Saw and Jen were together and she grew up, that it seems like it would have been good to see in the film, even if it was through a slower montage of seeing her grow up and seeing her fight to become this best warrior in his elite group of radicalists, essentially. And so you missed seeing her and cutting out a part of what could have made her even a stronger character coming out of it on the other end, seeing how she got arrested for stealing or whatever the case that Mon Mothma says to her in the beginning of all these different things she's done. Seeing some of that, I think, would have added even more to that character and made her more memorable. But we didn't get to see any of those things, so it just kind of like doesn't give you as much of a clear picture of Jen as I would have hoped going into it. The one other good thing that I really loved about this movie, and most people coming out of it are saying like, oh, their favorite character is K2SO. Hands down, bar none, my favorite character in this was Krennic, played by Ben Mendelsohn. I feel like part of that is due to me listening to the Audible book of the Catalyst, but just knowing that character and everything that he did to get to where he was at, and then for to have General all of a sudden I'm blanking Tarkin, yes, thank you, to come in and just sort of assert the win, so to speak, of the Death Star being able to do what it needs to do. You could just feel how badly Krennic wanted to be able to capitalize on his successes that he worked so hard to get to by bringing Galen Erso into the building and the parts that needed to be done to make the Death Star what it is. And just his anger and his general attitude and how kind of smarmy he is, everything I just liked about the character. And the fact that he's like, all right, Tarkin, you're going to steal my stuff? I'm going to go tell the Emperor on you. And he's like, goes to see Darth Vader, and Darth Vader's like, I'm not having any of that. Basically, he's like, know your role and get out my face, essentially, is what he said to him. And it's just like, man, I felt bad for him. But then that's, again, because I know the novelization. So he worked for me very well as a character, and I like what I got from Krennic in the film. And again, conversely, I think it's kind of sad only from the standpoint of me having seen or read, listening to the audio of Catalyst, that I felt a little shortchanged when it came to Galen Erso in the movie, because in the novelization, you really get more of his character. And not that I needed the movie to be about him or to center around him, but I felt like maybe a few more scenes would have really kind of did a lot to go a long way, especially when you get into the relationship between Galen and Jen. And I do again want to count that scene where with Jin seeing the hologram of her father. I thought that was pretty powerful as well, because that was the first time she had got to see her father in so many years, and hearing that he had essentially built a weakness into the Death Star kind of just helped to either give her proof or push aside her doubt that he was a good man, and that the fact that he left her for so many years wasn't his choice, but it was to protect her. And I thought that was a really powerful scene, and I love that a lot. But I think that's pretty much it for me. Like I said, I had a lot of negatives, but they didn't impact the overall feel that I had for this movie, which is I really, really enjoyed it a lot. And it's just one of those things where I feel like I don't think I'll ever be able to watch episode 4 without seeing Rogue One. Excuse me, or at least at the very least the last hour of Rogue One, and then go into A New Hope, because there's such good companion pieces together that it's just a good 1-2 duo now, and it fits so well into this saga. And I think that to have been able to do that is just something they should be congratulated for, because there's so many different ways this could have went really wrong and really bad, and for them to have been able to pull it off in the way that they needed to make it line up and make sense without too much of it going wrong is commendable. And even from the fact that they used old episode 4 Star Wars footage to integrate some of the pilots into the scene where they're fighting in space, and it's just so well done. There's a lot of Easter eggs in there. Like Michelle mentioned, you have Ponda Baba and the doctor from the Star Wars that are in there from the cantina, and they were on the planet as well of Jeddah. And so you get them, and then there are some that do feel a little bit heavy-handed. I'll agree in that respect as well. And then there's some that are so subtle that are like really just for the super fans or people that consume a lot of different Star Wars, such as the callbacks or Easter eggs that contain some of the stuff from the Rebels TV show that's in the movie, because it takes place around the same time. So I was able to not see it on my first viewing, but after knowing that it was there, secondly, see those things in there. And I was like, now that's well done. It doesn't impede anyone that's watching it, and for them to say, who's that or what's that? It's there for in the background, and if you know what you're looking for, it's just a nice little tip of the hat, and it's so well done. So it's fan service is there. Some of it I thought was handled really well, and some of it I thought was a little clunky, but overall it's still made for a nice little viewing and very inclusive viewing for someone that's a huge Star Wars fan. So yeah, that's all I got.
Can I throw out one quick thing I wanted to say? I totally forgot, because it's really more I want to see what your guys' opinion is on my thought on this really at the end, I guess. Okay. So I have to say, in the beginning of the film, when you're jumping between all the planets and you're going to this and this and this and this, it was really, we're going here, and now we're here, and now we're here, and then we're here. Yeah, I couldn't stand that.
Oh.
It just was so annoying. And it was like, is it really necessary to jump around to 4 or 5 different planets in like 10-minute time frame?
I mean,
less than that. 5
I would say
minutes.
I agree with you in terms of pacing of the movie.
Oh my god! I was like that. It was almost choppy, and it was annoying. And it was like, is this just so that the super uber geeks can just geek out because they know what these planets all mean and make them feel better? But like, it just was like, we're at this planet for like 30 seconds, and then we're at this planet for 45 seconds, and then we're over here, and it was annoying. I'm sorry. I just had to put that out there because I'm also curious to see if anybody else had the similar take on that.
Yasha, you're next, buddy. Your thoughts?
Wow. What do I have left to talk about that Bobby didn't really just completely address in full detail?
You can destroy all the things I said.
Expound.
Well, you know what? I actually agree with you, Michelle, because I thought the planet hopping was a bit much. I was like, I'm bored with this. Like, why do I care that they're on this planet? And do we really need to go from spot to spot to spot? So that's one. I wasn't a huge fan of Felicity Jones. maybe her acting or whatnot, I just wasn't really sold on it. Diego Luna, I can kind of, pardon me, Cassian Andor, like you said, Michelle, I'm with you on that. With, why does he have this blind, just fierce loyalty to this rebellion? Like, we don't know anything about this guy other than, hey, this guy's name is Cassian Andor, and that was pretty much it. I really enjoyed Orson Krennic, Ben Mendelsohn's character. I think he's a fantastic actor, and he really killed it for me. I really thought Forrest Whitaker was a waste of space in that film. Like Bobby said, it's like you kind of were just ready for him to die when he finally did die.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, please kill this guy, because his character just didn't seem beneficial really at all. He was a name and he was a face, and that's all he was. Riz Ahmed, Bodhi Rook, he was, I understood his part and his role in the film, and I thought that he did a really good job. Matt Mikkelsen is always good when he does his roles, and that was fun. I actually wanted to stand up and applaud the return and resurrection of Peter Cushing, because I thought that they did such a good job with the special effects there, which is one of the reasons what I was talking about when they said the special effects. Because after you get past the initial, I guess you could say, jarring return of him, I think that's what Bobby used. It was a little jarring. I kind of like started to forget that he wasn't really there. Like, I was really believing in it. Like, I sat there and I watched it. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is actually pretty cool. Like, they did a really good job. I was impressed. Even so, at the end, like when Leia showed up, I was like, are they going to show her? Are they going to show her face, or is she just going to be some woman in a hood? And when they showed her, I was like, oh, okay, she's a little shiny and it was a little perfect, but I thought it fit, like it worked. It wasn't forced to the point of nauseum where, she had this huge role and there was this young Leia that was walking around. Like, she had 30 seconds of screen time. She was on and she was off, and that was it. And I thought that was just enough. Peter Cushing's character I thought was fantastic because he was there through the entire thing, and I understand why they brought him back, because he was pivotal in the role of, everything when it came in, especially in episode 4. So I thought that his resurrection and being back, like it was jarring to me, for one, how he looked, and two, I was just like, wait a minute, that guy died like 20 years ago. Like, hold on a second, am I wrong? Like, I'm pretty sure that guy died 20 years ago. And I looked it up when I got out, and I was like, yeah. And I was like, that is awesome, man. Just special effects, bravo. The fight scenes and the aerial scenes and it's just spectacular. I thought it was fantastic. It was just very much an assault on the senses in a good way, where you're just watching and you're like, this is really cool. This is a lot of fun. And of course, there's the Vader scene, where Vader just pretty much stole every scene that he was in, because that was what I really wanted to see. I really wanted to see this character that we meet in episode 4, this unbelievable badass who had this amazing reputation already of being just the worst person ever and just horrible. And we don't really get a sense of that until like later in the films. I mean, we hear about him and, you kind of get that feeling, but this is one of the biggest badasses in, film history. And I really never really felt like we got to see him fully in action for some of that. And we got to see it this time. Like, it was gnarly. Like, when I could have watched that ending scene with Vader, where he is taking out all those rebels at least half a dozen more times, if not a full dozen. Like, I was so happy with that, because like Bobby said, you really feel empathy for these rebels that are getting slaughtered. Like, he just plows through all of them and it doesn't even miss a beat while he's taking a step. Like, it was just like going through them, and I was just like, this, and I really felt their fear. So kudos to those extras that did that scene, because you can feel they were terrified as to what was coming for them and what was happening. There was no way of stopping it. Like, and they were trying, and I enjoyed every minute of that, because we got to see Vader in his full glory, I guess you could say, being just evil and relentless and heartless and cold. And I don't know what that says about me, that I enjoyed it so much, but I wanted to see that from his character.
Oh, that scene could have looped like 2 more times, and it would have been totally fine with me. Like, it'd have been like, this doesn't disturb storyline at all for me. That's fine.
Yeah,
like that
I
scene.
thought it was great.
That scene
And
was spectacular.
Yeah, it was. And even the scene of him standing there looking over and watching, like looking over the hole in the ship and just looking down. And you're just like, dude, this guy is a beast. Like nothing is stopping him. And it was very reminiscent to like seeing or thinking about how much of a badass he was, that you were just, when you grow up watching Vader and thinking that like this guy is the big bad. This is the one that like really destroys people.
Yeah.
I really liked, not to get back to the characters, but I really liked Donnie Yen's character, like the blind monkish type character that he played, Chirrut Imwe, if that's how they pronounce it. I thought he was in. What's that?
I was gonna say, what was that religious thing that they were in? Was that the Willis? What is that? It's like a following of Jeddah.
The Wills.
Thank you. Sorry. Continue, Yasha. I'm sorry. I apologize.
I don't know. Him and his friend Wen Jiang is the actor's name, Baze Malbus. I thought they were both very good, and they were fun to watch. I loved all the Easter eggs. I mean, yes, I do feel like some of them were probably a little bit forced, and they did really kind of, really make sure that you got them. Some were very blatant, some were just very subtle, like the ones where they bumped into the 2 from the bar. That was very forced in your face. And then there's another one, there's a hologram of the dancer that was in Jabba the Hutt's temple. That was kind of like, if you blinked, you could have missed it, but you can see her dancing as a hologram on, and it's like, I thought those were really fun. And it made me want to really kind of examine and pay attention to what was going on in the film, especially, and actually look for little Easter eggs like that. I half expected like them to bump into Luke or maybe even Obi-Wan, inadvertently, but not have him really be a part, but just kind of like walk by or something like that. And it's like, I mean, because far be it from them to actually do that. I mean, they forced everything else into your face during this movie. Why wouldn't they do something like that? You know what I mean? But I mean, aside from that, I thought the movie was good. I mean, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun, and I thought it bled right into the storyline for the next Star Wars, which is Episode 4. I mean, Vader was amazing. This is exactly what I was hoping that I would get from this movie, except I probably wanted more Vader, which is fine that we didn't get it. Pardon me. But it was still just a very entertaining, fun movie. I thought it was brilliant how they mashed it together and gave us this story that we hadn't really seen and directed it into something that we've all known and loved for the better part of 30 years now. It was fun.
Cool. I guess that leaves me. So yeah, what else is there to say?
Tell us, fanboy, what's up?
Fanboy, huh? Yeah. I'll jump in with Vader, I guess, since we're talking Vader. I mean, how long has it been since we've seen Vader on screen and speak since Return of the Jedi, right? It's been a long time. And that first scene on, what is it, Mustafar? Where
You're forgetting, though, David.
At the end of the third one.
Oh, yeah. I don't count that shit.
He did scream no.
That's not the same. Hearing him talk in that scene in this movie, like just right at the beginning, hearing his voice, it was just like, oh my God, this overwhelming feeling of nostalgia and amazingness swept over me when he starts to speak. The funny thing is, though, is that he continues to speak. I'm like, oh man, James Earl Jones is old.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm like,
You hear it in his voice.
you hear it
You
in
can
his
hear it in
voice.
his
I mean, especially having like I said, I had just watched A New Hope like the day before. Kind of, it was more of like I put it on as I was doing things, but I was like, hey man, I'm gonna go see Rogue One tomorrow, put on New Hope, and having just watched that and hearing that version, the 40 years earlier James Earl Jones speak, and then now this one, I'm like, oh man, he sounds so old. It's so sad. There, especially in a scene later in the movie where he speaks. I forget where he was. There's another shot later in the movie where he speaks that was even more showing of his age. That I was like, oh God, like.
It was really good, and yet it was really bad all at the same time. It was this mixture of emotions of like, oh, this is my my childhood. Oh, my childhood used to sound younger.
It did. So that was interesting. And I mean, in the end, it's still awesome. And I agree with you, Yasha. Like, I kind of wish we got more Vader. I mean, I'm happy with what we got. But part of me feels like, this movie definitely could have gone in a different direction where we had a lot more Vader in this. And I don't think there'd have been anything wrong with that. And I think a lot of fans would have really wanted that. And a lot of even just general fans would have wanted that. Like, I'm curious to know why that wasn't a choice. But,
I thought that, not to interject, but I thought that, we were going to get a little bit more of seeing him on screen. And like you said, it's like, I'm happy with what we got as well. I just wish that, instead of just all the background shots or just kind of like alluding to him, we actually got to see him making some of the plans a little bit more, maybe a little bit more active and a little bit more threatening. Just a little bit more of his character, but it was awesome when he was there.
I was scared, actually. I liked the amount that we got, and I was kind of scared if we used more of him, it would have not tainted what has already come after that, but just the use, like David mentioned, with James Earl Jones's voice, and you could hear it. I was starting to get to the point where, is he going to start to not sound right more, or start to look odd in certain scenes? Even kind of like when he was in there, when he was talking to Krennic, something, I don't know, I can't put my finger on it, but something about the suit was different, or his posture, or the way he moved is different, obviously, because it's a different actor, but there was something within it. And so I was like, oh, this is perfect right now. Please don't go to the point where it starts to mess up for me.
To bother me.
So, yeah. So it's like, while I would love to see more Vader, I was scared that at some point they were going to overuse it and it start to be bad. So it kind of worked out just right for me, I guess.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting how they went out of their way to name every planet as you went there, but Mustafar, I don't think there was a title for it, and I was like,
there was not.
Why? That's interesting. I mean, it's not. This is a super nitpicky thing, but yeah, it was.
But no, it makes no sense because we went to other planets for fractions of seconds, and we were on that planet for quite some time, and I just don't understand.
Deep breath.
It's gonna be okay.
Deep breath.
I feel like that answer will be forthcoming in some way because it's something everyone noticed. Because, like you said, Michelle, every other planet, they give you a definite location of where you are, and then they don't when you reach Vader's place. And it's like, I heard someone theorize the fact that the reason that would be that they just wanted to hold off showing people exactly where they were just a little bit longer so that you get that reveal of Darth Vader, because if you just sort of throw it out there, you kind of already know. But I think people who know Star Wars well enough know already, but
right.
I don't know.
I could see that as maybe the only reason I could think of. Why not, I guess that makes sense. But still, it's funny in the end when you're going, man, you name every other planet, but not this one. But it was an interesting scene on the list, of course. It was definitely interesting to see that shot of him in that Bacta tank with having to be guarded by these Royal Guard, a Vader who it's much more recent since he had been turned into Vader and having to deal with his wounds. And I don't know, seeing that kind of side of Vader that we haven't really seen before, that was kind of cool, even if it was brief. But I dug that. Little things like that I definitely dug. So yeah, the CG character thing. I mean, I'll start with Peter Cushing. I mean, obviously I knew he was going to be in this, so I was curious to know how he was going to look. And in the end, I was fine and impressed with it. I thought he looked good. I mean, sure, there's definitely you can tell he's CG, and I mean, I kind of expected that, but I don't know. Given maybe my expectations, I was pretty impressed with it overall. And I definitely could buy into it way more than I have bought into previous characters that have had to be CG in other movies in the past. So, I don't know. I dug it. And again, when it comes to Leia, I've only seen the movie once. Maybe I'll see the movie again and I'll feel a little differently about it. But I totally bought into the Leia shot. Completely. It looked dead on to me. Sure, right when she speaks, that's the tell for sure. If she hadn't spoken at all, I will say I would probably have been I know that's obviously not her, but holy fuck, that is dead fucking on. And I mean, if the second she moves her mouth, then yeah, you kind of see it a little bit. But even so, I'm still like, you know what? It's pretty fucking good to me. I mean, that was my reaction to it when I saw it in the theater. But yeah, man, I don't know. Maybe I'll see it again and be a little more nitpicky and feel differently about it. But my reaction is definitely I was happy with it. So, yeah, I don't know what else. You know, it's definitely interesting to see all that stuff in the trailers that were cut out. And I've said before, like, I would love to see an original cut of this movie, and of course you never will. I mean, this is Star Wars. You're not going to get a director's cut. This is all canon, what we've seen, and you're never going to see another odd, random, on-canon cut. But God, I would kill to see what Gareth Edwards originally wanted to do. I don't know. I really wish that were possible, and it's just too bad it's not, because even though in the end, you know, all these stories about reshoots and everything, whatever they did, it worked, and I enjoyed the movie. But part of me wonders if, yeah, maybe it was all just because it was just a much darker tone that they didn't want to have in a Star Wars movie, and in the end, though, I probably would have really liked. So I don't know. I wish that were possible, but oh well. There was one scene in particular, and it'll probably seem odd, that I really liked. That the scene of, you know, Tarkin and Krennic and everybody on board the Death Star for that first test on Jeddah. Like, there was just something about, like, the way that was shot with all of these Imperial officers in this room, like, looking at that huge screen that we all know and we've seen before, and, you know, their effort to make this look so, you know, sci-fi and new, but yet 70s. That was just like, oh, this is just so fucking cool. I don't know. I just really dug stuff like that. You know, and I also like how this movie, I know I'm kind of jumping around a bit, but as these thoughts come into my head, I like how this movie kind of went a little deeper into the rebels and their cause and, you know, the reality of their rebellion, that, you know, they're not perfect, like, you know, some might think. And, you know, they sometimes have to do what has to get done. And, I mean, for better or for worse, I don't know. But that was kind of cool to see that side of the rebellion.
Yeah, like seeing the round table scene where Jen is like trying to convince them, and they're all just back and forth, and nobody can agree. Like, it was cool to really see. I feel like we've seen some round tables where it was like there's a couple representatives, but I felt like that was every representative of the rebellion was in that room. Yeah, and it was just cool to see it all mix here and there and go back and forth, and it was. Yeah, I totally agree. Like, that was a great scene for me, and it really gave you a depth of the rebellion and where it is in the grand spectrum of space, right? Universe, and whatever.
I was thinking of that scene when Cassian is like telling that dude, "Oh, it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay." Bow, shot in the back. He's like, "All right, I gotta get out of here."
Yeah,
dude.
Like,
I can't deal with your shit.
And that's what I think where you kind of take from that character is that even though he doesn't have a lot of screen, or not that he doesn't have a lot of screen time, but that you don't get to know everything about him. Some of the things that he says, like in that speech when he's basically saying, look, we've had to do things, and if we don't go forward with this, that means that all this stuff that I had to do, this crap, you know, this shady kind of stuff, just means nothing. I just did it for nothing. So we kind of have to go forward. And so you get that sense even then, and when he's talking to Jen about like the rebellion is real for her at this point, but for him, he's been going through it since he was like 6 or however old he said. And so it's been like his daily life of having to live like this. And as David said, not on the best of terms, not this very clean, clear-cut black and white level of being, oh, I'm a rebellion, I'm on the rebel side, so I live this way. It's actually, no, there's some gray areas there. So this is the first time you get to see that within a Star Wars film.
Yeah. And yeah, as I said before, I went into this having read Star Wars Catalyst, so I had a lot of backstory about Krennic in my head that I already knew. So I was definitely curious, you know, right after the movie was over, and I got a chance to talk to my wife about it, who saw it with me, and she had not read that book and is not as familiar with the Star Wars universe. And I was curious. I'm like, so what did you think of Krennic? Like, having watched this movie knowing nothing, basically, you know, because my feeling is like, I loved him in this movie, but I'm like, I had all this backstory that I was coming from, and I kind of felt like there was, not enough like development for him, in this movie for anybody who hadn't read that. So I don't know. That's why I wish I could experience this movie without having read that book as much as I enjoyed it. But I mean, I'm glad I read it, but I don't know. I was curious. And I mean, she had told me that one perspective that, she felt like she got what she needed from him. And, so yeah, I don't know. It was definitely interesting having read that book and feeling like, oh man, like I'm so glad I read it and knew all this stuff. But what about everyone in here who hasn't read this book? Like, what are you thinking about this and thinking about that? And I don't know. I'd love to talk to more people about it. But
I mean, he just seemed like a corporate climber, like he's just trying to grasp the next brass ring, and that's all he's trying to accomplish. And I'll say the actor who did it, what is it, Mendelsohn?
Ben
Ben Mendelsohn.
I thought he did a really good job, and I just felt like it fit really well within the universe, his portrayal of this guy, and I felt like it fit in, and it just, I don't know what it is, but he just had this very 70s New Hope look to him, and I feel like it just fit so well with the storyline, and it just was seamless to me. His character and the actor playing him, I felt like it meshed really well. That's just, and, I know nothing about his character whatsoever, and that's just I'm definitely, as far as Star Wars goes, like I'm way below my knowledge of it than the three of you guys. So, but like, yeah, I liked it.
Cool.
The interesting thing I find about Krennic is that he's every bit as good as being I guess, part of the Empire as Tarkin is, except for Tarkin just kind of already had an end with Vader and the Emperor. And so it was like he was able to kind of get that next rung right before Krennic was. So it's interesting, especially when you look at the book, that the long form game of chess those two were playing at trying to rise in the ranks. And really, it seemed like for a lot of at least from the novel standpoint, and David, you can correct me if I'm wrong, you almost get the sense that Krennic was a little bit better at being able to play people and knowing how to play that long game of chess slightly better than Tarkin, but Tarkin maybe had that one last killer move or was able to take advantage in one area that Krennic wasn't able to get to the position that he was able to get to.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And it makes you wonder if in the end, if Krennic had pretty much taken the role that Tarkin took, would things have played out differently for the Imperials in A New Hope as opposed to how it did turn out? I mean, would he have been a better commander for the battle station? I don't know.
Yeah.
But no, I agree with you. But yeah, I don't know. When it comes to spoilers, there's nothing else popping in my head to really bring up. Again, I really like the movie. Even if I did say that, like, compared to other Star Wars movies, it may seem a little more bland, but I dug the different feel of it, that we were getting more of a war film, especially someone like me who lately I play a lot of Star Wars Battlefront, and it felt like Star Wars Battlefront. It felt like I was playing that game, but looked way more awesome. And even the way you see Vader in that final scene, if you ever play with Vader in the game, it was a lot like that. I was like, and that scene was just like a holy fuck moment for me. I mean, it was amazeballs.
Like when he throws the one dude up to the ceiling, I'm like, oh mother of God.
And then crushes him. Like I was so taken back. Like when he put that guy on the ceiling, I was just like, holy shit. Like I was just like, whoa.
It's like it's that moment when you go up against the big bad guy in a video game, like you were saying, and he just beats the shit out of you the first time you walk in that room. You're like, what the fuck just happened to me? Like that's literally how that scene was. It was like, wow, I just got my ass handed to me.
Right.
And I barely batted an eye.
All the new specials that you've never seen before, and all of a sudden he's using stuff that you've never seen before and just taking advantage of you, and you're just like, oh, well, wait, I don't know what to do now.
Oh, I just got killed like 20 ways to heaven in like 2 seconds. Awesome. Okay.
It's like being locked in a room with Jason or Freddy, and they're just walking towards you, and there's nothing you can do about it. And the sense of desperation. You're just like that last guy who had to hand it through the crack. I mean, Oh, that's so rough. I mean, it's like
He's like, I'm
knows
not
he
making it out of
sees
this
him
room.
behind him.
He knows,
Yeah,
he's like, I'm not making it out of this
I just got to
room.
get into this next person. And Darth Vader just skewers him with the lightsaber.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh man, that's so rough.
Yeah.
So good though.
But yeah, I mean, you're watching this movie and you're enjoying it and you're like, man, this is great. And then that scene happens and you're left going, holy shit. Like I want
a horror
more.
movie.
I want more of that. And now you're left going, but am I ever going to get more of that?
Nope.
Like probably not. Or I mean, it's always a possibility, but fuck. Like
Yeah.
I mean, especially if you want James Earl Jones voicing that character. I mean, with that said, I mean, we were talking about a movie where we just got 2 CG characters in it. And to me, if there's something that's more believable to pull off, it would be to fake that voice for
Right.
sure.
Oh, totally. It'll be easy. There's so much
Yeah.
video of him speaking and audio. I mean, there's files and files and files of his voice, not just from these films, but from all of the films he's done. Like, it would be so easy to compile, a full speech of James Earl Jones's voice in. I mean, he could do a monologue easily,
Right,
just his
but
voice.
I'm even saying, like, even if you didn't go about it that way and just manipulated someone else's voice to sound like his, it's very
easily
doable.
done.
So I don't know I want more Vader. It was just so
Yeah,
nice.
and I'm right there with you. Like that scene alone, just yeah.
You know
Want
what
more
else?
Vader.
You know what else I loved is I loved the scene where they're overlooking like from the tower and they're looking at the beach and you're watching the bombs go off. I'm like, oh, there's something so satisfying about this moment.
Yeah, but I was also it was not funny, but it was interesting that the Imperials picked such a paradise to have their security
It
complex
looked like
on.
Dubai.
I'm like, man, this place looks amazing. I want a vacation here.
It was like looking at Dubai. I was
Yeah.
like, Jesus, who did they screw to get that location
Right?
in there? Like, there's guys that are moving trash, as we all know, up in the middle of effing nowhere space. There's other dudes that are living in Dubai.
This place is awesome.
This place is amazing. Who they
Yeah.
screw to get those orders? Like, I want to live on that planet.
Right.
Shit. If I was in the order, I'd be like, wait, no, my orders are up. I need to relocate. I want to go here.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. It was nice. I was like, man, this place is great.
Palm trees, lots of ocean.
Right.
It looks fabulous.
But yeah, in the end, thoroughly enjoyed the film. I can't wait to go see it again. Having seen it already once in Dolby Cinema, I'll probably have a hard time not seeing it in Dolby Cinema now.
Yeah.
I mean, especially the 2 times that the weapon is used in this movie. And like, you mentioned how you not only have great sound in that theater, but you even feel it in your seats. And it's just like, this is just so perfect. Everything just feels and sounds so good and looks so good. And I don't know if I could go watch the movie another way. I'm glad I didn't bother seeing it in 3D. I mean, I haven't heard anything about the 3D presentation of this movie, but I had no desire to see it in 3D. So,
You know what? I actually saw it in 3D.
oh, you did?
Oh.
I did. I forgot to mention that. Not great. But I'm not a fan of 3D to begin with. So I mean, some of the scenes were very, very cool, and it was very, very neat to see it in 3D. But I'm just not a fan of 3D. Period. It doesn't matter what kind of screen I'm watching it on. The sound was amazing, but I'm just not a fan of real 3D. And the only reason I went is because that's what time was worked in my schedule. So
You gotta do what you gotta do when it comes to this. But I gotta
Skippy.
say, being in the digital theater, when the planets are imploding, exploding, when they're exploding basically from the inside out, like you feel it in your seat. You feel your seat rumbling as the planet is literally like upheavaling, and it was just spectacular. Like, it really added to you're like, oh fuck me, that planet is done. And you feel it like in your legs and in your back in that theater, and it was spectacular. It was awesome.
Or those cities were done. But
Right. Okay. Those cities were done. Yeah. Technically correct.
And yeah, if we want to get technically correct, any really hardcore nerds listening to this, and I made a point to commend you on your AT-AT comment. In fact, they're actually ACTs in this movie. So I'm now correcting myself too on that one.
I'm sorry.
Or
My
what?
apologies.
At acts.
My apologies.
I did love the
apologies.
reaction I did love the reaction they had when they first shot at the AT-AT and it didn't do anything. It just kind of shrugged it off. Like his reaction was so priceless. He was just like, "Wait, what?"
Right.
Like he didn't know.
Well, it was
He didn't know
amazing because
what to
it
do.
hit it and it moved almost like it was an animal getting
Right,
wounded. Like it was
exactly.
like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm wounded. And then it did this turn. It was like, no, fuck you. I don't care. I'm still going to shoot you.
Yeah.
What? What just
Yeah.
happened? I just blew a missile at you. Wait, what?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was,
Like
it was
his,
spectacular.
like I said, his reaction was so priceless.
yeah.
It was just like he was just like, "Ah, shit, what now?" Like
I'm out. I'm out of
like,
ideas now.
Yeah,
No, it
I
was-
don't know where to go. What's the next move?
Yeah, that
Run?
that
Run sounds
entire
good.
that entire beach battle scene was just it was delicious. I loved it. I loved every second of that. And then they jump back up into space, and I'm like, yes. And that was just as awesome and beautiful as it could have been. Like it was just. Like I said, I thoroughly that last third of the film, I was all in the whole way. I was like, oh God bless, this is amazing. Yeah, no, I was very happy at that point.
One thing I didn't mention, as for the fan service, I actually like it was like you mentioned early in the movie when you see those two guys that you end up seeing in episode 4 in the cantina scene.
Yeah.
I actually like that moment. I was just like, oh, is this how this is going to be? Are we going to get a lot of this? I actually didn't care for that moment at all because it did seem a bit forced for me. There was other moments that were fine. Like, I mean, the C-3PO R2-D2 moment, I was just kind of like, okay. Like, it's kind of unnecessary, but fine. I get it.
I think they feel like they have to have 3PO and
They
R2D2.
do have
like
to.
they feel like they have to have the two of them in almost every film just for a hot second
I don't
as a
think
reference.
they have. Why do you feel like they have to, Bobby? You're saying they have to? Like, why?
Because to me, it's like, excuse me, at this point, they are and have been the Stan Lee of the Star Wars series.
Right.
It's like
yeah.
they show up in every single movie, and if they don't show up at some point, it'll feel weird to not have them. And yeah, I could definitely absolutely say it felt forced,
Oh,
but yet
totally.
I still felt like I needed to see them at some point because they're in all of them. Just like until Stanley dies, I feel like I need to see him in every movie that's a Marvel film.
Right.
So it's like I get it if they don't show them like in some movie, like if they don't pop up in Han Solo series. I'll get it because it's like, well, why would they? But at the same time, it's like, dang it, they broke the streak kind of thing. So
Yeah.
it's like, it's not like I feel like they have to in the sense of they're needed story-wise from a story point of view. It's, they kind of need it from the Easter egg, like, hey, they've been doing
Yeah.
this for all the movies kind of point of view.
The one that kind of was like, oh, they're overdoing it too much is I got a bad feeling about this.
Oh, really?
See, I actually
See,
like
that
that.
one-
I
that
like
one
that.
bothered
that
but
comes
I
in.
was like, I just feel the force.
It is
Everybody
funny
has
when
said
we
it.
when we talk about this and how like some things, like that bothers you and it doesn't bother me, and then vice versa. There's other stuff. It's
Right.
It's always interesting to see how we feel differently about stuff like this. Because like that, I'm like, okay, that's fine. I mean,
Yeah. You know,
I totally get it too. Because sorry, Michelle. I was just gonna say I kind of agree with Michelle in the sense that I was like, oh, well, why'd they have to go there? Because it's like, okay, I understand if you want to fan service some things and take some things, but I feel like that one was just one too many
Yeah.
from that pair because they had already given us one when there's
Yes.
in the Riz Ahmed when they're like about telling the odds. And
Yeah.
it's like that's a Han Solo thing as well. So like, okay, you got one in, and then they go with it again, and it's like, you're dipping in the well a little too much. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I kind of agree.
There
with
was another catchphrase, and now my brain just dumped it that they said too, and I was like, man, they're just giving everything all on the catchphrases. God damn it! But what I was gonna say was that I think it would be interesting amongst us at some point in time if we could sit down and like rank the now 8 films that we have to see what our listings would look like. I'd be curious to see. I actually could do it right now, but I'd be curious to see where your guys' were. I'm like,
I mean,
your
yeah,
favorites. Like,
I would definitely be interested in doing it. There's no way I would do it until I saw this movie again. I mean,
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I mean, to me, I just could not place it in a ranking until I see it one more time at least.
I think I'm pretty good. I think I got this.
To me, I don't know. It's been my experience with almost any movie that big movies like this, they almost need a second viewing. And Yeah.
We should do it and like submit it and just have it on the website, and people can kind of be like, "Oh, that's really, that's how you rank that? Michelle's a fucking moron." Or they'd be like, "I totally agree with Yasha. That dude knows his shit." That could be fun.
It was interesting before seeing this movie and seeing, I think, one or two people say, "Oh, this was like Empire Strikes Back, like level good," and I definitely did not feel that way.
No.
No.
I will say that.
No.
No.
But in the end, very, very happy.
Yeah.
I've said before, I not even a fan of the idea of a a Han Solo movie that we're going to get. But at the same time, of course, I'm going to be excited to see it. It's another Star Wars movie. I'm looking forward to it in the end. But if I still had to choose, I wish they were doing something else.
Do you feel a bit like the way Bobby was saying he feels? Like he's feeling a little more renewed hope, a smidgen towards it, even though he's obviously not wanting it. Like, are you kind of like, okay, well, maybe won't be
I feel like this is the way I've always felt about it. It's that in one sense, I don't want it to exist. In the other sense, I have faith in these filmmakers that it's probably going to be a very good movie. And I want it to be a very good movie.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm excited to see a very good movie. So I know that seems conflicting. Like, why would I not want it to exist if I think it's going to be a good film? I know that makes no sense, but
I think in this situation it does.
I don't know. I would still be surprised if I saw it and was like, oh, God, this is terrible. I mean, the only thing I guess that's the big question mark is, will I buy into what's-his-name's performance as, Han Solo? That'll be the big one. I mean, how can you not feel that way? I mean, like, you've got a guy.
I'm not worried about that. I feel very confident, actually. In him.
I mean, hey, I think he's a great actor. I've been very impressed with everything I've seen him from, but I have no reason to believe that he will definitely be a good Han Solo because I've never seen it before. I mean, it's cool. I'm glad you feel good about it.
I have faith, trust, and pixie dust, my friend.
But yeah, I mean, this is going to be the first time someone else is going to play that role, and that's a huge deal. Like, and it's something I have not been interested in witnessing. I don't want to witness it. I still don't know how I feel about the Ewan McGregor Obi-Wan. Like, I mean, I'm not. I'm not saying I dislike it, but I mean, he's fine. But that's not, in a way, that's still not Obi-Wan to me. Obi-Wan is always going to be the Obi-Wan that we know from the original trilogy. But
right.
Anyway,
so
I digress.
So overall, we all like this.
Overall, we're all
happy.
This. Let's talk box office numbers really quick. It, of course, did very well. Rogue One, A Star Wars Story, was number 1 this weekend with $155 million. Moana was number 2, well below it at 11.6. Office Christmas Party at number 3. Collateral Beauty at number 4. And Fantastic Beasts at number 5.
I'm really kind of sad. Collateral Beauty has like an 18% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh shit, does it? I hadn't even looked at that.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Holy! I mean, I will admit, I feel like I knew it was going to be a sappy fanfare, sappiness thing that was it's just to make everybody feel, like heartwarming and heartbroken all at the same time around Christmas. And I totally get that. I totally get that about that film. But 18%? Mother of God.
Yeah, it's at 14% right now.
That is, oh, Jesus, it dropped.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
Like,
I didn't know that. That's funny.
I saw it earlier and was like, oh, Jesus, Lord. But there's also La La Land is out right now as well. What else is out right now that I wanted to see? Oh, yeah. Passengers is coming out soon.
Yeah, La La Land expanded. It's still very not wide at all. It's only on 200 screens.
Yeah.
But it's definitely wider. It came in way down to number 7.
I'm excited for that one.
But yeah, unless you guys have anything else.
I got one more thing.
Sure.
For anyone, as you mentioned, that you wanted to see more Vader, and I would say this is obviously not the same, but you can see Vader in Rebels TV show, which is pretty satisfying in a lightsaber battle that he does with a couple of characters in that are pretty proficient with the lightsaber themselves. So that was actually good. And also there is a novelization that is canon that has Vader in it as well. And it's I think it's Lords of the Sith. And the premise is that the Emperor and Darth Vader are trying to put down an insurrection on a planet, and in doing so, they kind of get essentially grounded and are on this planet trying to face against all these rebels, and it's just them together using their lightsabers and wits in order to get out of this situation. And from what I've heard, it's very brutal and very good, and hopefully maybe Disney or someone is like, oh, maybe we could make that into a movie, and they just record a whole bunch of dialogue from James Earl Jones, and then they could throw that into a film eventually at some point. So that'd be kind of cool. And yeah, like I said, it is canon. So I think it takes place like after Episode 3. So it's a sort of a baby fresh Vader in terms of his power and everything. So
Nice.
Yeah, there's definitely things out there if people want some more Vader, even though they can't get it in the film version.
Cool. Good to know. But yeah, anybody got anything else? Time to go?
I would say
That's it.
Merry Christmas to everybody, since we won't see anybody or hear anybody until after the holiday. So yeah,
That's true.
Merry Christmas,
Good
everyone.
point. Merry Christmas.
Yeah, Merry Christmas. everybody.
Christmas.
Yeah, we will be recording an episode maybe like right after the next weekend. We're trying to figure out exactly the scheduling for that one, but
I think we can easily do something. After
yeah, I mean
Christmas.
something's going to happen, but we just haven't figured out if exactly what day we're going to be recording it. Since I can pretty much guarantee we're not recording it on Sunday.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, we will be recording something again soon, and of course, we've got a top 10 show coming up pretty soon, so look out for that for sure.
Top 10 in the new year.
Exactly. But yeah, as always, we would love to hear back from you. You can email us at feedback@flickereffect.com. You can reach out to us on Facebook, on Twitter, and on YouTube. Like I mentioned earlier, youtube.com/Flicker Effect. You can find all of these episodes in there. We'd love to see your comments. Yeah, we'd love to know what you think. I'm David Lott.
I'm Bobby Jackson.
I'm Yasha Wilson.
I'm Michelle Curry.
Thanks for listening.